Rejection isn't what changed your life. The story you created after it did. Every single person watching this has been rejected by a friend, a relationship, a job, a dream, a group of people. But here's what's interesting. Two people can experience the exact same rejection and become completely different people. One person thinks, they just weren't my people. The other thinks, maybe I'm not enough. Same rejection, different identity. Because rejection doesn't become your identity, your interpretation does. And once I understood that, everything started making sense. Why people stay in toxic relationships, why they struggle with confidence, why one comment can stay with someone for years, why some people never feel good enough even when everyone around them loves them. It isn't because they're weak. It's because their brain did exactly what it evolved to do. And today, I want to explain why. Because I truly believe understanding this might change the way you see yourself forever. Why rejection hurts so much. People love saying, why do you care what people think? But I don't think that's the right question. The real question is, why does rejection hurt so much in the first place? At first, it sounds dramatic. It's just rejection. It's just someone's opinion. But your brain doesn't think that way. Your brain evolved thousands of years before phones, before social media, before dating apps, back when belonging wasn't just nice to have. It was survival. If your tribe rejected you, your chances of surviving became much smaller. So your brain evolved to treat social rejection as something incredibly important. That's why research has found that social rejection activates some of the same brain regions involved in processing physical pain, including the dorsal anterior cingulate cortex. Emotional pain isn't identical to physical pain, but your brain processes both as significant threats. So when someone leaves, ignores your message, or rejects you, your brain doesn't ask, did this hurt emotionally? It asks, are we still accepted? That's why rejection can stay with you for years, not because you're weak, because your brain was designed to remember social threats. Rejection doesn't change you, meaning does. Here's the idea that completely changed the way I think about psychology. Events don't build identities. Meaning does. Imagine two people. Both experience the exact same rejection. One thinks, they weren't my person. The other thinks, I'm impossible to love. Same event, different story, and eventually, different life. Because after every painful experience, your brain asks one question. What does this mean? The rejection lasts minutes. The meaning can last decades. Pause and think about that. The rejection is over, but the story you created might still be running years later. People don't get trapped by experiences. They get trapped by the conclusions they made about those experiences. Here's where your brain starts working against you. Now something fascinating happens. Once your brain creates a story, it starts looking for proof that the story is true. Psychologists call this confirmation bias. Let's say your brain decides, I'm not enough. Suddenly, you notice every criticism, every unread message, every canceled plan, every awkward interaction. But you barely notice the compliments, the people who stayed, the people who chose you. Not because those things disappeared, because your brain filters reality through what it already believes. Think about buying a new car. Suddenly, you see that car everywhere. The cars didn't suddenly appear. Your attention changed. The exact same thing happens with identity. If your brain believes, people always leave me, you'll start seeing evidence of rejection everywhere. Not because rejection is everywhere, because your brain is searching for it. Why some people struggle with rejection more than others. This is where something called rejection sensitivity comes in. If someone grows up with repeated criticism, inconsistent love, exclusion, or emotional unpredictability, their brain learns something. Watch carefully. It might happen again. Not because they're dramatic, not because they're too emotional, because their brain adapted. Think of it like a smoke alarm. A healthy smoke alarm goes off when there's a real fire. A hypersensitive one goes off when someone burns toast. The alarm isn't broken. It's trying too hard to protect you. That's what happens after repeated rejection. Someone takes longer to reply. Someone seems quieter than usual. Someone forgets to invite you somewhere. Your brain immediately fills in the blanks. They're leaving. They don't like me anymore. Not because that's reality, because that's what your brain has learned to expect. When rejection becomes your identity, this is the part one wish more people talked about. Because rejection doesn't just change how you feel, it changes how you behave. And eventually, that behavior starts reinforcing the identity you already believe. This reminds me of one of the central ideas in psychocybernetics. The author argues that people tend to act consistently with the self-image they hold of themselves. Whether every part of that theory is scientifically established isn't really the point. The idea itself is powerful. If you believe, I'm shy, you'll speak less. If you believe, I'm difficult to love, you'll over-explain. People please, accept less than you deserve. Maybe you stop texting first because you're scared of bothering people. Maybe you avoid opening up because you expect people to leave anyway. Ironically, those behaviors can create the exact outcomes you're afraid of. People become distant, relationships struggle, and your brain says, "See, I told you." That's the loop. Your identity shapes your behavior. Your behavior creates more evidence, and the evidence strengthens your identity. I remember thinking confidence was something people were born with. Some people just had it, others didn't. But the more I started learning about psychology, the more I realized something. Every time something painful happened, I wasn't just experiencing it, I was deciding what it meant about me. And that's when I became obsessed with understanding why our brains do this. Because once you understand the mechanism, you stop blaming yourself and you start questioning the story instead. How do you change? Most people try to change their behavior first. I don't think that's where change starts. I think change starts by questioning the story. Instead of asking, "What happened?" ask, "What meaning did I attach to what happened?" Maybe they didn't leave because you weren't enough. Maybe they left because they couldn't give you what you needed. Maybe that rejection wasn't proof that you're unlovable. Maybe it was proof that not every relationship is meant to last. Those are two completely different stories. One creates shame, the other creates growth. Same experience, different identity. I want you to remember one thing. Maybe your life isn't being controlled by your past. Maybe it's being controlled by the meaning your brain attached to your past. Because memories don't build identities. Meaning does. So stop asking, "Who rejected me?" Start asking, "Who did I become because of that rejection?" Because that's the story you're still living. And it's also the story you have the power to rewrite. Your brain isn't your enemy. It did exactly what it was designed to do. It tried to protect you. But sometimes, the story that once protected you becomes the very thing that keeps you stuck. And your life begins to change the moment you stop treating someone else's rejection as proof of your identity.